people that have huge successes sometimes don't like open up the curtain all the way and talk about some of the struggle points and stuff like that. And it makes it seem like it's so out of reach. But will you tell us about maybe the early struggle, if there was some uphill moments for you to get this off the ground, the Warp
Well,
Tour?
luckily I had put in those 12 and a half, 13 years in the clubs every night of the week.
Mhm.
320 days a year I was working shows.
Yeah. So you knew what you were doing, you're saying, when you got
But I
to
was
this
also
point.
building those relationships that allowed me to fail because ultimately the first Warp Tour was kind of a failure.
Oh, let's talk about it. How so?
You know, no one got understood what I was doing. Some of the bands did, of course. Me at
Hmm.
Sublime, No Doubt, and
Yeah.
the people that knew me were willing to take a risk on me because I'd done so much for them in the past or helped them. They were willing to take this risk, and then those bands, even though
When you say they, are you referring to the artists themselves, the management, the
the artist,
agents, like
the
everybody, or
artist
the artists mainly? Okay, right.
The
Okay.
artist got it, you
Okay.
know?
Okay.
Trust me, there I had to go sometimes you're not supposed to enter industry go directly to the artist, but I had to go to directly to the artist that
You
first day.
would? Okay. Okay.
You had nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose at that point because, 1, I knew that I loved it to be around music, but I would have to create
Yeah.
something for myself at this point.
Mhm.
And 2, I always believed that, and I realized at first I was the person that loaded people's equipment in their vans or threw people off stage all
Wow.
night or built barricades, set up the dressing rooms, whatever. But if you really believe in something as passionately as you do when you create something, you need to be willing to talk about it.
Hmm.
I wasn't going to be the front person. I was the guy in the background. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to convince people that this is going to be a good thing.
Mhm.
And we went out, and it was a band of gypsies. There was like-minded spirit. We were all a bunch of free spirits trying to figure it out as we went. As I was challenging every norm, there was no headliners. We wouldn't tell the kids what time the bands were playing.
Hmm.
All these different things that I had learned from working other shows and being around that I just decided to try myself. And enough people got it. And throughout the years, for 25 years, some people never got it. That's fine.
Hmm.
The Warp Tour wasn't for everyone. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe in a little selfish way, I said it was for all the smart kids. No, because
Wait, wait, hold on. But wait, the first failure though. All right, I just want to make sure there's tangible takeaways for like the listeners. So like, first of all, like you had about 13 years of experience before you took on this endeavor, right? So you didn't just
yeah,
come in as a total newbie. That's
right.
one. But two, like how bad you said you still did flop, right? At your
Oh
first go.
my,
So
oh
so
my,
how bad was that? Like talk us through the feelings, the emotions. Like that's the shit that I like to talk about that's most relatable for people.
every
Yeah.
day. Like we started
Mhm.
out, my gosh, it was like I'll never forget that first day in Salt Lake City. But I also started learning lessons too because we had this punk rock show, and I
Mhm.
brought a climbing wall. No one had ever brought a climbing wall on a punk rock show.
Right.
And I'll never forget a little kid. And I wish I could meet him now. He's probably about 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
He had a mohawk, and he ran up to the climbing wall and he goes, "How much?" And I'm like, wow, is that the first thing we ask when we come to how much? I go, free. Now, the guy who brought the climbing wall is like, how the hell are we going to do this for free? I says, you know what? I need to create experience that people aren't asking how much, like give them something extra. So we
Mhm.
have that climbing wall.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there was only 600, 700 people at the first Warp Tour. Second show was even worse. The promoter like didn't even show up. We
So
just
you
kind of
you
ran.
lost a ton of money though, Kevin, to be clear, right? On
Everyone's
the
losing
right.
money.
Mm,
I'm losing money. They're
yeah.
losing money. I'm
Yeah.
getting screamed at by promoters.
Wow. Mm.
But enough of them saw, and I think that was because I'd done so well for other that I was allowed to fail and get a
Mm.
second chance.
Mm.
At
Mm.
different times throughout music, my history, that tour wouldn't have lasted 2 or 3 days.
Mm.
But we got through that first year, and I knew that we had to regroup, and I learned a lot. I understood, and it was hard because wait, we got to have to go get a sponsor to help us do this. We're
Vans, right?
we're
Vans
punk,
came on board,
yeah,
right?
we're
So
punk rock. Fuck
yeah.
corporate
Yeah,
America. We
fuck
don't
the
want to do
fuck
it.
the
Yeah.
man. No, right, right,
You
right,
know, and all of a
yeah.
sudden I'm realizing, wow, maybe I have to go get some of this money so I can continue having fun with my friends.
And wait, just a funny moment, like from I heard you share in another interview, you're like, some of these bands on the Warp Tour were like, fuck this corporation, this sponsor, and then they would go eat the food that like was like being provided by that
Oh yeah,
corporation. You're like, man, that's hypocritical, man. Like you can't. So
yeah. It was
yeah,
definitely. But there was days, but I also saw
Yeah.
the inspiration to me was when we would open the doors each day, and whether there was
Go
a
more
few
into that. Like what, what
few
was,
hundred
give us the
kids,
visuals.
everything. I got goosebumps every time I opened the doors
Wow.
when those kids
Mm,
come in. And I always said, if you stop getting goosebumps, it was time maybe to think about doing something else. And that's what happened around 2017. I was not
mm,
as excited about going on the road. I was not. Uh, it was just not. I felt I was going. So much of the burden of Warped Tour was falling on me because the
yeah.
promoters were fine because we had different deal than most people. They didn't pay a guarantee. We were
Mhm.
percentage of a door deal, like a club band at a door deal versus a guarantee. So much was following on me that it was really there was really stressful. And I actually went out to the industry and invited a lot of people to my backyard
Mhm.
barbecue and stuff. And
Mhm.
really, no one was coming up with. First time I ever went to anyone, I said, "Look, I'm kind of at a loss. How are we going to keep this thing going? Is it important to keep going?" And I was really getting kind of bad suggestions from some people,
Mm,
just how to keep it going. And I was just like, you know what?
mhm.
I'm going to wind this thing down in a nice way. 25 years is perfect.
Mhm.
We had a in 2018. I just booked all my fit friends and more legacy bands, and we had our second biggest year, and then wrapped it up with those big shows in Atlantic City and San Francisco, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
And time to move on. When I drove out of the parking lot in San Francisco, and my wife, I go, "Yeah, that was fun." She goes, "Is that all you have to
That
say?"
25 years was fun. Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was fun overall. And now what am I going to do now? Oh yeah,
There was no grief, you were all smiles, you're pulling away. I got the visual. Right. Okay.
yeah, just
Yeah.
got the
Mhm.
visual. I was
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
boom. And then, we're now, and we got together as our partner. Fans was a partner, and we just said, you know what? Let's put this away for 5 years. Now
Mm.
we're coming
W
up
w
on 5 years.
Wait, Kevin, hold on. Wait, we're breezing past this. You didn't tell me about the Vans a little bit more in depth about there was the hesitation to again go corporate because you were kind of anti-corporate. So partnering with Vans at first was a little there was some hesitation at first, right? And so I
Not so
just
much
wanted
for me. For me, I was
okay.
going to see how people responded. But
Okay.
Vans is a cool company.
Right.
We all growing up in California, we all wore Vans. It was like mom
It's
would
like
drag.
Vision Streetwear or Vans, right? The two
Well,
skateboarding companies,
prior
right?
when I was younger, there was no Vision Streetwear. So
Okay.
Vans
Okay.
was the company,
Okay.
and then I grew up in Claremont, so the LA County Fair was right next door. So
Mhm.
mom would drag you to the LA County Fair, and there was
Yeah.
Steve Van Doren when he was about 10 years older than me. So I was maybe 16 or when I was 6. And him and his family were out there, and it was two pairs for $10, I think.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it was like a sale they would do at the fair, and we would
Mhm.
go get our shoes to go to school. And
Mhm.
so partnering with Vans was easy for me. You know,
Mhm.
certain people were like, I wear Airwalks, I do this. I remember some of the punk bands, like, that was fine. But they eventually
Yeah.
all they all went over and picked up their free pair of Vans that Steve was passing out and clean socks
Yeah.
eventually.